Welcome to episode 9. In 1781, at a place called Yorktown, the British Army surrendered, and by 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized the United States as a free and independent nation. The war was over. To the young people watching, imagine that feeling of that first morning after the victory. No more king, no more British taxes, no more redcoats in the streets. But with that freedom came a massive question. Now what? Today we explore what independence actually felt like on the ground. It was a time of immense celebration, but also the moment we realized that freedom meant something different to everyone. We'll look at this to see how our ancestors began the hard work of building a home from the wreckage of a war. The Treaty of Paris, 1783. The war didn't end with a sudden poof of magic. It ended with careful diplomacy. In 1783, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay sat down in Paris to negotiate the terms. Britain didn't just give up the 13 colonies, they gave up a massive amount of land, reaching all the way to the Mississippi River. This was a hopeful explosion of possibility. Suddenly, the map of the world had changed. For the first time in modern history, a group of colonies had successfully broken away from a global empire to rule themselves. It reminds us no matter how powerful a system seems, a dedicated group of people with a shared vision can change the course of history. What freedom meant for the common man. For the average farmer or shoekeeper, freedom meant autonomy. It meant you were no longer a subject, but a citizen. In the years right after the war, many states began to lower the requirements for who could vote. Before the revolution, you usually had to own a certain amount of land to have a voice. After the war, the idea that merit mattered more than birthright started to take hold. People began to dress more simply, speak more boldly, and treat each other with a new kind of social equality. This was the beginning of the American spirit, the belief that you are just as good as anyone else, regardless of your last name on your bank account or your bank account. What freedom didn't mean, the Loyalists. To tell the truth, we must acknowledge that independence felt like a worse time for about 60,000 to 100,000 people. The Loyalists. These were Americans who had remained loyal to the king. After the war, many were harassed, lost their homes, and eventually fled to Canada or Britain. This reminds us that the winning side of history often comes with the displacement of others. There's a lesson in empathy that even in our moments of national triumph, there are neighbors who might feel left behind. Understanding this helps us strive for a more inclusive America today, where we try to find room for everyone, even those we disagree with. The Native American dilemma. For the indigenous nations, the end of the war was particularly complex. Many, like the Haudenosaunee, have been divided, with some fighting for the Americans and some for the British. In the Treaty of Paris, Britain gave away indigenous lands to the Americans without even inviting the indigenous leaders to the meeting. This was a deep moral contradiction. The Americans had fought for their own self-determination while simultaneously denying it to the people who were here first. By identifying this flaw is how we grow. Today, we see a modern America that is working harder than ever to honor tribal sovereignty. We learn from the freedom that wasn't in 1783 to make sure freedom is real for everyone in 2026. As we close today, we see that 1783 was the start line, not the finish line. Independence was a gift, but it was also a heavy responsibility. To young people, freedom is not just the absence of a king. It is the presence of justice. To the people of the 1780s were flawed, but they handed us a framework that we could keep fixing. You are a part of that repair work. Next Saturday, we see the chaos of the early government and the miracle at Philadelphia, where we wrote the Constitution. Until then, stay brave, stay empathetic, and remember, your voice is part of the freedom we won.